Hi, everybody, again. It's so good to have you all out here. Okay. Thank you so much. Aren't they amazing? Can we get a round of applause for how amazing they are? Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Lee, and let's go down the line. Was there a film that you recall seeing, this is for everybody, okay, that you recall seeing that made you fall in love with your craft?
Yeah, that's pretty easy. I actually think it was the film Alien. And I was a teenager on a holiday in Australia, and I went into a board one day from the beach. You know, Santa Barbara, you must all get bored with the beach. And it had, I always remember it because I was traveling with some friends of mine. I think we were all about 16 or 15. We were too young to get into this. I think it was R-rated, but we slipped in anyway. And they had sort of hammock chairs. It was like a very small town, very strange cinema. And we watched this film called Alien that Ridley Scott made, and I was so blown away. I was just, you know, I was in love with Sigourney Weaver, but that's another story. And I just thought, wow, what a cool thing. Imagine working in an industry that, you know, you could put this kind of thing on the screen. And then I do remember watching films like Lawrence of Arabia with my dad and going to drive-ins and all those kind of things and watching, you know, all those classic movies as I grew up. And my father was in the industry, so it was something that always interested me. And yeah, any of these, I mean, all of these films tonight, man, what a group. Inspiring. So I would have worked on any of them and probably done a little bit more editing. I mean, to be fair.
What about you, Barbara?
I think Blade Runner may have been, the original Blade Runner may have been the first time I thought, wow, a complete reinvention. And also the movie Brazil. Those two kind of, you thought, wow, that's a whole different world that you couldn't even think of. That the idea of having that kind of an imagination to foresee something that wasn't in anything else. I would say that.
Yes. Steve?
I think E.T. was probably, when I was a kid, that was one of my favorites. My father was a big movie buff, had hundreds of videotapes, and every week we'd watch a movie. But I think just growing up watching movies and loving movies, and I thought, you know, I want to join that circus. You know.
Kristen?
I'm debating whether it's West Side Story or Sound of Music. Those are the two that because we're always asked this about theater, which is right, where we both came from, but that first movie that made me say, oh, I want to do it for movies. Yeah. And then for animation, of course, Little Mermaid. You know, Alan Menken basically built the playground we're playing in all the time.
And this isn't a musical or an animation, but Star Wars, I think, sort of is a musical in the way those themes are it's an opera, it's song, it's character, it's all that. And it became this franchise that just continued to expand musically in a way that just inspires me every day.
I think the first one that got me interested in film music was King Kong, but another monkey movie got me interested in like the craft of it, which was Planet of the Apes. So Max Steiner did King Kong, and of course Jerry Goldsmith did Planet of the Apes. And I heard sounds in there that I had never heard before in classical music or any kind of music. It was the weirdest sounding thing in the world. And years go by, and I'm scoring my own movies, and I'm working on Planet of the Apes. And I have been working with this percussionist, Emil Richards, who had worked on every movie you can imagine. He played the original bongo role in Mission Impossible series on TV. I mean, this guy has done everything. And I had worked with him for years, so he was in our orchestra. I was like, Emil, didn't you play on Planet of the Apes? He goes, yeah, I played. And he starts telling me all these stories. And then the next day he brought in the sounds that I was describing to him, he brought in the instruments that he played and gave them to me, and they were literally mixing bowls from a hardware store. And he would just hit them with the thing, and it was the greatest thing in the world. He gave me that and a ram's horn that they used on the film. So he passed away a few weeks ago, so he was, but the guy was the greatest in the world. So yeah, Planet of the Apes.
That's a really good answer. Am I answering the same question?
It's your turn, yeah.
So, influence movie. Besides Porky's, I'd say Jaws. It would be Jaws. Jaws to be is everything that cinema can be, and the power of movies, and the camera placement made such a difference, and the handheld photography, and capturing that movie. I mean, it changed my life, and I think anyone who's ever swam in the ocean, because that image, I will never swim in the ocean at night. I don't care what you do, because of that movie and that shot underneath, and day for night, by the way. But yeah, no, that movie's everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't swim in the ocean either now. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm from Berkeley, California, up in Northern California, and we had a revival house there that showed a different film every day. And my dad used to take me to things, and we would go on the weekends with friends. And so I saw a variety of weird old movies at the time, things like Logan's Run and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which were now, projected in a revival house, which were like mind-expandingly weird and wonderful. And then for me as well, Star Wars, when that came out, just being gobsmacked by it. And then at the end, I remember my dad saying, "Did you see how the robots were dirty at the beginning and they were really clean in the last scene?" I was like, "What?" And then my friends were saying, "Did you hear the bit where Obi-Wan Kenobi said that sand people walk in a single file so that they hide how many of them there are? They don't leave their tracks scattered." And I was like, "What?" And so these ideas that a movie was not just cool, but it was a world, and that there was a fantastical experience, a tone that could be created. I didn't ever dream to be in movies at that point because I didn't get it was a job. I just thought it's amazing stuff. And I made models and eventually got a gig doing it one day as a teenager. And now I'm here. So I think it was probably a little weird path of those strange movies leading up to this sort of technological marvel that sort of hooked me in.
Sandy.
I saw Death in Venice when I was 14, and just fell in love with it. And I was at school, and then I bunked off school 7 more times. That means skipped school in English. 7 more times to see it with my friend, Gillian, because we were both in love with the boy, and I can't remember his name, the actor who played Tadzio, the young boy. And I was just in love with the whole visual splendor of it, and the huge hats and the costumes. And then I later discovered that the costumes were designed by someone called Piero Tosi, who really is the costume designers, what I call him. And he designed all of Visconti's films and Fellini's films, and is just a genius. And it's just stayed with me forever, and it still is my favorite film.
Yeah. Christopher.
Well, I'm with you. I'm a Star Wars kid, and like Return of the Jedi, like I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't get enough of Superman. That sort of escapism that was part of my generation. I mean, I came to things like what Sandy was talking about, like all of Piero's work, much later, and appreciated that. But honestly, like my favorite films are all of like the John Hughes Brat Pack films. No, they really are. I mean, it was sort of like this escape from my little 5,000 populated town in Minnesota. It was like wow, I just want to be dating Molly Ringwald, which of course that would never happen. I mean, obviously, but I think I've said enough.
Okay, moving on to Kazu.
Yeah, it was the first Star Wars, but I didn't have any interest in the makeup that time. Because I hated horror film, and I still don't like the bloody gore stuff. But Amadeus, it was like a first thing. I thought that was a perfect film with a perfect makeup in it. Yeah, that was a big influence for me.
So we're going to start at the top and work our way down, but what's the most satisfying part of the creative process for you?
When I see everything come together on the actor, and the actor become different person, and see as a one character in the film, that the moment I really, feel like accomplished and really happy for the actor too, because it's amazing moment to see, totally different person and created a new character or new person in a film. That's a moment, yes.
Yeah.
That's a big question. And so I'm going to say this instead. There are a lot of filmmakers, in the audience. There's a lot of very talented filmmakers on the stage. And just because I may never get to say this again, mentorship is really important. And finding, those people, whatever you do, that you can offer something of your own experience to. So I had the great pleasure of making The Irishman with a very important creative influence on me and my accidental mentor, and she's sitting next to me.
Oh, thank you, Christopher. Now I've got to beat that. I mean, okay, I think I can speak for Christopher too, and probably every other costume designer, to say that actually the most satisfying moment in the creative process is that moment that you have in the fitting room with an actor. When you've been through, however many different things that you've tried on or whatever stage it is, but there is a moment always when suddenly the character appears. And it's there, and then the actor knows it, and we know it, and it's sort of like, it's that eureka moment.
Yeah.
That's the best bit.
Is that the same for visual effects?
Yeah, these movies like Lion King are really complete raw creation from zero, right? I mean, we're making everything, and at the beginning you don't know if you can do it or how you're going to do it. That's cool, but scary. The moment later, when this huge crew is cranking away, it could be 2 years later, it could be a year later, you're not sure when it's going to come. You've slogged away on this thing, trying to crack problems and figure things out and lock designs down, and suddenly you're racing, and there's hundreds of people doing things, and one day you come in, and a shot appears, and you go, who did that? When did that happen? And it's amazing. And I couldn't have told them to do that. With all we've learned, I couldn't have told you everything to do. And you're just seeing that the team, things are just bubbling out of them. And that's really powerful. It feels really gratifying that you've, kind of all gone through this together, and suddenly this sort of magic is just happening, sort of spontaneously coming out of this group of people. That's pretty crazy.
Great. For me, it's basically every single day, there's always a moment when you just capture something that's never going to happen again with an actor, and all this sort of planning and preparation that you do to get to those points of shooting days. The days of shooting are always joyous, even when they're hard and problems arise and you're running out of light and all that stuff. You're still like, there's a moment when, and hopefully it's many moments, but sometimes it's just once a day when you just, everything comes together and you capture something, and you're like, this hopefully will be part of the film and live forever. And it's just that live moment. Each day of shooting is always satisfying.
I think for me, it's working with the unsung heroes in what I do are the people that perform the music I write. And I always like to think that if I, didn't have these amazing musicians to work with, I would just have lots of paper, and you'd be like, that sounds terrible, paper, the sound of paper. So what you have to realize is when you get into a session with these players, They have never seen this music before. They come in that day not even knowing what they're going to play. They know it's me, but they don't know what we're working on. And they just sit down and play it like that. So they can look at the music and play it almost perfectly the very first time. And that takes years and years and years and years and years of practice, rehearsal, dedication, all of these things. So I have such respect for them. So for me, that is the most satisfying thing, is just seeing them do their art with what I have written, and it's just always astonishing, and it never fails to amaze me.
For me, I love to sit at the piano and just noodle around and improvise based on the story that we're trying to tell. But really, what I'm waiting for, there's one moment, and it's always when Kristen goes, "That! I like that! Let's use that!"
You're taking mine! You're taking mine! I was gonna say the same thing!
We can share it, it's okay. You finish.
We're gonna share it. Because that is the moment when you go from having nothing, when you're like, to pull into the unknown, because that's why we're here, to that moment of into the unknown, and you don't know what's going to happen, and then in real time, this collaboration just creates something, and it's there, and now we know what we're going to hold on to, and now we know what we're going to build on, and it's Bobby's music, and it's our ideas, and it's playing, and that's the moment that I live for.
I think honestly for me it's going to the theater and watching the film with people who didn't work on the film. And seeing the joy that they get out of all the work that we've done, because every time I've seen a movie that we've worked on, it just kind of does this well up in me, and that's when I feel most creatively happy, is that the movie lives with the audience and the audience loves the movie, and you know that everybody's work wasn't for naught. Because I'm sure we've all done a movie that pretty much nobody wanted to watch, and those are heartbreaking.
Some of us had directed them.
Yeah, well, there you go. So when a movie resonates with the audience, I think that's when it's really special for everybody who was involved in making that movie too.
I think from my side, it would be if you spend months designing and building something, that as that moment comes towards starting to the shoot, and all of a sudden lighting comes into play on top, and then actors start to walk in with costumes, which usually to me is another set piece. It's, they're going to be even before my set, and then that transformation of us go. And this, you look and you have this perfect moment of you have transformed something into whatever film you're on in that one moment. That's kind of the high, is that everything at the same time, seeing it work together. I think so.
I would say that just working with, so many talented people, because, this is such a group effort when you make a film. There's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And in my editorial department, I've got assistants and, many, many people working with me, and, watching them, learn and gain experience, and watching the youngest of them who have never been to a dailies room or never seen anything projected, and are looking at me in fascination because they're seeing 1,000, on a conventional film, 1,000 takes, and wondering how would you ever put that together. And then I show it to them and they're going, "Oh my God, it's like watching a movie." And it's like, yes, that's what we get paid for. But also, just as you were saying earlier, but for me, it's test screenings, and when you can put all of your best efforts in, and you're surrounded by hundreds of people killing themselves to make the best film they possibly can, and then you finally put it before a test screening, and you're out of excuses, and you're out of places to hide, and then suddenly, you know, as one director said to me, it's like opening the kimono. Everyone can see what you've got, and you take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've worked on them all. So yeah, it's fantastic when it works. It couldn't be better.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. And without further ado, I'm going to bring out Sandy and David Wasco, who are production designers in La La Land, to present the awards.
This is our favorite award. Thank you, Jazz, and thank you especially to everyone on the stage this evening. You've worked on some of the best films of the past year, and each film owes so much to your contributions. Sharing the stories of your creative challenges and innovations has educated us on the process of how films are made, and made well. This has been a masterclass, and we're truly grateful to all of you.
How nice it is to stand on stage alongside such established and talented artists. And how nice it is that Variety created this award to recognize the craft side of movie making. Thank you to everyone on the panel for such an insightful Q&A. You shed a clear light on the inner workings of what we do and how we work together as a team alongside other departments, contributing to what ultimately becomes the magic of movies. It is with great pleasure and gratitude that we're able to present the Variety Artisans Award to such a deserved, talented group of artists. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, everybody. And thank you all for coming out tonight. And congratulations once again to this amazing panel. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Santa Barbara Film Festival.
Thank you.